PSP is here.
Welcome back to Retro Rebound. In today's video, you might want to buy one of these, perhaps with Darth Vader on the back, and you're wondering, is it worth it in 2024? And I've got a lot of answers for you, but to open things up, buying a PSP in 2024, it's a little touchy, I'll be honest with you, because for two reasons. One, you do have the PS Vita, which has access to not only Vita games, but PS1 games, and yes, PSP classics. It doesn't have every single PSP game in the library, but it does have a good chunk of them where you can get full all-in-one access to a lot of the PlayStation portable library, if you will, through the Vita. And we actually did a buying guide on that. It was our first buying guide of the year. So if you missed that, go ahead and check it out. But also, the other complicated thing that's happening in real time is PlayStation is moving very quickly with porting games from the PSP and the PS2 into their PlayStation Plus service, also selling them a la carte. And so a lot of PSP games, like even Daxter, are being ported from the PSP to PS4 and 5 with trophy support and also updated controls in certain areas. You might find that to be a better place to play. So unlike previous buying guides, I normally never include a list of games you shouldn't buy, but we're doing that here for the PSP. Now I have the pile of games next to me and I can confidently say all the games I'm telling you not to buy, you should buy, just in different places potentially, and just give you the option. Because for example, the Vita, you're at the mercy of the digital storefront. And for PlayStation, you're at the mercy of a digital storefront as well when it comes to getting some of these ports on PS4 or 5. So maybe the PSP and these games will still speak to you, but they're split into two piles. I just wanted to progress in that manner. But as always, let's open things up with the hardware. Which version of the PSP should you buy? And fortunately, it's not as complicated as the Nintendo DS. Thank God. So first and foremost, if you do own a PSP and you just want to check what version you have, because they all kind of look a little bit similar outside of one we're going to talk about, just look at the barcode here on the bottom and you'll see at the end of it, like mine says PSP 2000. And so I have the 2000 version right here. So you can find out that way. But nonetheless, you have the PSP 1000 to open things up. This is the original version, a little heftier, not the best screen. Definitely, I would say just off the rip, not the ideal starting point. Of course, the cheapest, but not really where you want to go. Meanwhile, scaling up to the PSP 2000, aka the PSP Slim, although it does go through some ghosting. However, PlayStation also doubled the RAM here for better load times. It's another reason why you don't really want to look into the PSP 1000. Great system, had it right at launch, absolutely. But even the quicker load times on their own makes the PSP 2000 way worth it. Like, you can not care about screens all you want, but that load time, like, you remember when you're playing the PSP and all yours, the of the UMD spinning for like a minute? I'm thinking of you, WWE SmackDown versus Raw 2007. Yeah, like I dealt with that metric ton like every PSP user, and you can avoid at least a little bit of that with some upgraded versions. There is also the PSP 3000, aka the PSP Slim and Light. This does have an improved screen again, particularly here with colors and brightness. The importance of that is it's removing a lot of the glare that you'd experience with other screens in the PSP library. And also, both the PSP 2000 and PSP 3000 can output games, but in particular with the PSP 3000, you can output them in both component and composite, while PSP 2000 was just progressive scan. Last but certainly not least is the PSP Go, one of the more iconic revisions of the PSP. I call it the PlayStation Envy because it reminds me of the cell phone a lot. You slide this thing open, you close it. It does have, in my opinion, better analog stick placement, and it didn't make me think it was a speaker like I did originally when I first got my PSP, but it can only download games since it lacks a UMD drive. So yeah, your choice here I don't think is very complicated. I think you can go wrong by doing PSP Go and PSP 1000, but really it's kind of a pick your poison between the PSP 2000, which I have in hand, and the PSP 3000. Now, I didn't deliberately pick the PSP 2000. I just saw Darth Vader on the back. I saw a really good deal online when I first got back into game collecting right ahead of the pandemic, and that was the end of it all. I wasn't really paying close attention then. But many people online do swear by the 3000 and think it's better. Some think the 2000 has more of a retro feel. It's up to you. My personal suggestion is to go with either the 2000 or the 3000, and all of these are priced relatively in the same area, but I would just say avoid the 1000, even though it's the OG, it's definitely the most inferior version compared to the revisions, or the Go, because you're not gonna really download these games. You don't have a great Wi-Fi adapter in there. It's just not worth it. I don't even know if you could access the PlayStation Store on these things nowadays. So yeah, it's just not worth it overall. One thing you should keep in mind though with something like the PSP 2000 is because it's slim, maybe hand cramping, consider peripherals, that sort of thing, as I always warn people with decent sized hands when it comes to buying handheld games. But that's enough on what hardware you should buy. Let's get into the game recommendations, shall we? First thing we're gonna do here is the recommendation pile. What games should you buy, in my opinion? Let's kick things off unorthodox, shall we? That's right. Untold Legends 1 and 2, aka Warriors Code and Brotherhood of the Blade. As you'll see on the back here, they're talking about be as fearsome as a foursome. You know, what's going on here? This is an action RPG series. And if you like games like Diablo or Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance or Champions Return to Arms, if you're a sucker for those types of games, you're absolutely going to love what the Untold Legends series brings to the forefront. It is just kill, loot, talk to NPCs, and constantly build out your character. I was glued to these games as a kid and have core memories of growing up sitting in the backseat of the car with one of my childhood best friends and just playing via ad hoc and just enjoying co-op adventures together. Like, it's such a special PSP game. Nowadays, with more action RPGs than ever, maybe it doesn't age as well for you, but I absolutely adore this game and couldn't help but recommend it. And they come on the cheaper side, so there's that too. I gotta recommend Star Wars Battlefront Elite Squadron. There's also Renegade Squadron as well. These are PSP exclusive Battlefront games. With the Classic Collection coming out on all systems, I do wonder if they're going to eventually port the PSP Battlefront games. I would love to see that because I feel like they're just overlooked. I mean, these are the games that kind of defied what the console Battlefront games are doing, because they're the only ones. Granted, there's a loading screen, but you could go from the ground to the sky. There's a whole new story here. And I have so many memories of just late nights spent with these games, neglecting my parents and their desire for me to go to bed early. I was like, yeah, sure. And then I'd snuggle up with a little Battlefront Elite Squadron. They have new classes in these games, new maps in these games. Like, they're fantastic. I really like them. And if you're a Battlefront fan, particularly the OG Battlefront, you should absolutely have both these games in your collection. Got to shout out SOCOM here, US Navy SEALs, Fireteam Bravo 2. There's also Fireteam Bravo 1, but just for the sake of consolidation, we're just going to show off 2 here. I love SOCOM. I wish it came back. I do think it's a perfect time for SOCOM to be around, like the idea of like a co-op mission-based shooter. I think a little bit of what Ghost Recon Wildlands is doing, but like SOCOM just has something to it. Like, I remember on the PS2, you could wear the microphone and give commands to your squad, and that was awesome. So a lot of what makes the PSP charming to me is you get these console experiences on the go, which is why I love the PS Vita as well. So you just kind of truncate that further and further. So you're not going to get like the full-fledged console experience of SOCOM, but you're going to get something pretty close to it. And I think SOCOM actually feels pretty good. You do have to navigate with shooters like SOCOM, a little bit of that awkward analog stick and how you look around, because there isn't a right analog stick, just a left one only. So it's a little funky in that department. Keep that in mind when shopping for some of these shooter-based games. What is a PSP recommendation without Persona? As you can see, pretty expensive franchise on the PSP. I think you should probably avoid Persona 3 Portable for obvious reasons. They just did 3 Reload, and I do think that is one of the best versions that you can play of the game. Like, you're certainly not doing it wrong if you're doing it that way. I will also say, though, that Persona 3 Portable does have a little bit more of a slimmed down story that I think gives it a better flow. I think the social gameplay also flows better because it's more visual novel style, and you get the FemC plus all of their soundtracks. So Persona 3 Portable isn't a bad pickup by any means. I played all of 3 Portable on my PS Vita, so that's available there. But definitely when you're looking at OG Persona, you don't want to get the PS1 version. You want to get Persona 1 and 2 on PSP, at least right now where they're currently available. There's rumors of remakes for those, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's something Atlas is doing. But yeah, these games have updated soundtracks, updated dungeon navigations, updated stories. They are much, much better on PSP. So just keep that in mind when shopping around. But these are some of the more expensive JRPGs that you can pick up. But they're also some of the nicest complete box experiences. So, you know, if you got the money to blow, pretty good place to do so. What's a buying guide without my anime recommendations? Here we have a perfect example of what I was talking about earlier of console games that you would get that can now be taken on the go. So what we have here is Naruto Ultimate Ninja Heroes 1, 2, and 3. So if you're like me and you grew up on Ultimate Ninja, which is the 2D fighting game on the PlayStation 2, then you're gonna love Ultimate Ninja Heroes because it's literally that on the go, all the way up to Ultimate Ninja Heroes 3, where it starts to include Shippuden. Like, this series went on for a long while, and I absolutely adore these games because as a kid who traveled on the road a lot, I missed my console games. So to have games like Ultimate Ninja Heroes was so important because you never felt like you were missing out. Obviously, it's a little bit different nowadays, but I strongly recommend if you're into 2D fighting games. I think there's just a charm to when anime games were kind of like this. Like, they were just all over the place doing all different things. And just to get that portable experience of Naruto and those storylines, I mean, it's some really cool stuff. In particular, I have really good memories with Ultimate Ninja Heroes 2, because I think in Japan it was called Ultimate Ninja Heroes The Phantom Fortress, and there is that in this game, and I have core memories with this because it was available at Best Buy for some reason in Japanese. I don't know how it got there, because I don't know if they were just going through a wave of like, let's import these games and see how they do. But I went to buy it as a kid. I remember my parents and the Best Buy employee asked me like, are you sure about this? Do you really want to buy this? Are you sure? It's in Japanese. You can't speak or read Japanese. And me being a stupid, impulsive kid, yeah, it's fine. Fire it up, what do you think happens? I don't know what's going on here. Like, how do I fight? I don't know what to do. And so, never played it again. So I just have an emotional attachment to like, yeah, it's in the West and now I actually own it for real this time. So I love the Ultimate Ninja Hero games, but I do have that personal attachment to it. What we have up next here are the Monster Hunter games. You have Monster Hunter Freedom Unite and Monster Hunter Freedom 2. If you're gonna buy one of these two, get Freedom Unite. It is the re-release that follows up Freedom 2, and it includes more content, more weapons, more missions. I know we're all aboard the hype train for like Monster Hunter Wilds, Monster Hunter World's great, Rise is awesome too. Like Monster Hunter is just clicking away, but I still love this game. It's slow, clunky, methodical, ye old Monster Hunter, and I like that. I mean, this was my introduction to the series. I loved Monster Hunter Freedom Unite. I found it so addicting, and I still believe Monster Hunter is best on the go because I do like just picking it up, diving into a mission, and then moving on. That's what I did a ton as a kid. So I think this fits really well and is a great travel game, especially. Like, there's something about old school Monster Hunter. No doubt they evolved in the right ways. Like having the completely open maps of Rise and World is perfect, and how they're evolving it into Wilds looks wonderful. So I'm totally behind the vision, but don't sleep on the older Monster Hunter games. They're pretty cool, even the ones that are a little bit more clunky. Next up is like a top 3 PSP game for me, and that is Mega Man Maverick Hunter X. For those who love Mega Man X, this is a remastered, remade version of that game, except it's fully voiced, and this was like the travel game for me. I would run through this game constantly. I adore X so much, and to get the voice performances you get in this game, like this is my X, right? Like this version in X Command Mission, like same voice actor, like this is my X. This is the voice I think of in my head when I look at this character. I adore the performance in this game, but also just, I remember this is the moment I discovered really what makes Mega Man click. I was on the road with my brother. He was on a travel baseball team. I brought just this game with me, and I couldn't figure it out. And I was trying and trying and trying. And just like with any Mega Man game, you figure one boss out, and it's this beautiful cascading effect of now I'm knocking them all down. And I remember distinctly beating this game outside on a baseball field. So there's that core memory too. So I know I have a lot of nostalgia for these games, but seriously, if you love Mega Man X, you do have the Legacy Collection. You could play it there, but I just think with the story and the voice acting here, that what they have with Mega Man X Maverick Hunter should not be missed if you're going to pick up a PSP. Here's an iconic one that many of you probably forgot about. Grand Theft Auto Liberty City Stories. Yep, you remember this one? The streets of Liberty City are in turmoil, with warring mafioso vying for control as the town begins to self-destruct under the waves of political corruption, organized crime, drug trafficking, and union strikes. Yeah, a lot of people think that these are some of the best GTA games, and there is a novelty to them, no doubt about it. I have very little experience with them, but what I love about them is this simple. I think Rockstar makes a dang good game, and I miss the days where Rockstar was making a dang good game more than once every 8 years. That was a pretty good time where we were getting like Bully and then GTA 4 and just so on and so forth. I just thought it was so great to see how often they were releasing stuff. So I missed that version of Rockstar. I just wanted to shout out that they were very much available here on the PSP. There's also like, I think Chinatown Wars or something like that on the DS. Like there are plenty of GTA games that you may have forgotten about. So I mentioned with Naruto that there may have been another series that really benefited from being on the go, and that is the Budokai and Budokai Tenkaichi series. You have Shin Budokai Another Road, which is the sequel to it, and then Tenkaichi Tag Team. And if you were to ask me, Another Road and Tenkaichi Tag Team are must-owns. Of course, they follow the same rulebook as Naruto Ultimate Ninja Heroes. These only go as far as much as you care about having these games on the go that replicate that console experience. So if you love Budokai Tenkaichi 2 and 3, you might want to own Tenkaichi Tag Team. Like, it's great to have. Like, they have a ton of modes there. If you like Budokai, that more 2D fighting style, and you want the best version of that, Shin Budokai Another Road, probably the best place to be. So do you care about having that on the go? If you do, this is a great pickup, absolutely. Same thing with Ultimate Ninja Heroes. But if you don't care, these have no value to you at all. We already talked about one of these. I want to make another video on the sequel to it. We have Dissidia here, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to try my best here. Dissidia 012 Duo Decem. You tell me if I nailed that one, but nonetheless, Dissidia has aged phenomenally well, maintaining the RPG elements of the Final Fantasy series while still having like a really unique fighting system of like strong attacks and weak attacks that attack different types of health bars, and it's really easy to kill off your opponent if you're getting careless, and great defensive options and cool movement like grinding around the arena. And then Dissidia, we'll call it 012, I'm sorry, again, like I was totally spacing on this game when it was coming out, has Lightning, one of my favorites. Like, you have so many great characters here. Tifa's here, you have Tifa here, you have Yuna here, like just iconic characters all around the board. So they have some amazing content in both these games. The quest mode is great, the story mode is great. Do not sleep on these, they are must-owns as far as I'm concerned for the PSP library, and have yet to be released, so there's that too. If you care about Ape Escape and minigames, this is a great place to be here. Ape Escape on the loose. It is, as you can see here on the back, they talk about snowboarding, boxing, racing, ping pong, anytime, anywhere. You can just see all the different mini games here. Really cheap pickup, of course, so you can't really go wrong with that. But Ape Escape is a core franchise. There are other core franchises like Killzone and also Resistance available on the PSP if you want portable experiences of those, like Killzone Liberation and Resistance Retribution, so keep those in mind as well. But there's a lot of core PlayStation franchises that I think will forever be stuck on the PSP, but I just wanted to shout out a little Ape Escape. And the last recommendation I have for you here is a deep cut, and this was rumored for a while as a re-release, and then Square Enix kind of trolled everyone. That is The Third Birthday. This is a third-person RPG shooter, and it's a little mixed for people. This is one of those games I bought at a good price purely for, number one, getting a good deal, but also it's like, I want to play this someday. I don't know when I'll get to it, but I know I'm going to. And so I just wanted to shout this one out. It's one of the most aesthetically pleasing and biggest cult classics on the platform, so you may want to look into The Third Birthday a little further. I wanted to shout that one out. Now, my beautiful friends, it's time for games that I don't think you should buy, whether I think they're available in better places elsewhere, or they've imported, or they might be ported. We'll get into all of that. Let's start off with Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. This is one of my favorite entries in the series. Like, you should play this game, absolutely. It's been remastered multiple times. They have the all-in-one package on all systems. I think this is just best played with the HD remaster. You get better load times, better visuals, the music's still there, the gameplay's still great. Like, everything about the game that you love is still there. It just looks and runs a lot better. And Kingdom Hearts at 60 FPS is no joke, y'all. So I think Birth by Sleep is a must play. If you do like Kingdom Hearts, of course it's a must play, but not on PSP anymore. You also have games like Jeanne d'Arc, which many people love. This got ported, so you can play this on PS4 and 5, but otherwise, if you don't know anything about it, they talk about it being a tale where history meets fantasy, crusade through the French villages and battle mythical creatures, command 14 heroic characters in a quest to recapture the homeland and engage in unique team-based attack and defensive schemes. So very different style game, very cool though. I love this cover art, one of my favorites ever, just super atmospheric. Like, I just immediately want to play this game. There's another game in this pile, I'll actually pick it out next, that my favorite cover art ever. And it's funny because I never even played the game, but I'll get into that. So yeah, Jeanne d'Arc has been ported, as has Valkyrie Profile Lenneth. I think this is like the most raw cover art ever. I remember walking into Walmart so many times as a kid and seeing they had the kiosk of games. And you may or may not remember, but nowadays the way the kiosk works is it's just the side profile is what I call it. Like, it's just the side and they list all the games out. But there was a time it was more like rounded at the end, and they would have this end cap that would have all of the portable games. I always remember staring down the PSP section, and this game was sitting there every single time. And the only reason I wanted to play the game was because of this cover art. I just think the crying, the mood, the feel, it just, oh man, like I want to play this game just so it could absolutely wreck me. And it's part of why I put it off, because I'm like, I have such high expectations because of the box art. Like, it's like completing a childhood prophecy by just owning the game, let alone being able to play it. But anyway, this is available on PS4 and 5. It does have interesting combat where it's kind of like a character control system where everyone's mapped to a face button and you kind of string together combos, but it's also very strategic. So this one plays different, very unique, definitely worth taking a look at. There are the PSP God of War games. I think hidden gems. Do not overlook these. But you do have the Origins collection on PS3. You have the HD collections on Vita. Like, there are a lot of ways to experience this. I think just play the HD collection personally. It's been said many times, Final Fantasy IV, the complete collection, is the best way to play Final Fantasy IV. And among other Final Fantasy games that make their way to the PSP, I think your best place to go nowadays is the Pixel Remaster. So that's another one that great game from what I've heard. Have yet to play it. It's on my list after 14, which I'm still chipping through right now. Almost done with the Realm Reborn quest line, but this is up next after that. These two go in the same pile. I know they're nothing alike, but these to me are some of the most iconic staples in a game library for a system ever. Like, you know how people go, oh, the attachment rate of Breath of the Wild and Switch has to be insane. I think it's like 75% or something like that. I think the same thing for Daxter and Crisis Core, even though I have no numbers to back it up. Like, if you didn't own both these games when you had a PSP, you were doing something wrong. And so Daxter's been ported. Crisis Core has been lightly remade, I would say. They call it a remaster, but the way the combat flows is way better. You do miss out on Zack's original voice actor, which kind of stinks, but I think the replacement is all right enough. He does a good job, I would say. It's not the same as Zack, but I think it's respectable enough. But these are great must-play games. I mean, have you not experienced the Matrix minigame in Daxter? Hello? But one has been lightly remade. I think that's the best way to play it in Crisis Core Reunion. And in Daxter's case, if you don't care about trophies, you don't care about playing a PSP game on the widescreen, on the big screen, then go ahead and pick it up for your PSP. But otherwise, if you care about trophies and that sort of thing, you can get the game elsewhere. Next up, if you care, I guess, Secret Agent Clank has been ported. Moving on. Tactics Ogre, Let Us Cling Together. This is one of our most disliked videos on Retro Rebound. I don't think we have any massively disliked videos on the channel, but if anything came close to it, it was Tactics Ogre and my thoughts on it. I'm not super in love with this game. Maybe I'll have to give it a second chance another day, but I put like 25 hours into it and tapped out. I was like, not really feeling this one. And you know me, I love me a good JRPG, but I will say this, removing my opinion from the matter, this is a game people swear by. It also did get reborn on other platforms. So if you want to play Tactics Ogre, there is the original version here, but you can also play it elsewhere. Keep that in mind when shopping, and it'll also be a lot cheaper. I also, last but not least, for our final reminder here, these games currently are safe and available on the PSP and may be worth picking up, depending on how you feel about certain games, I should say. I don't want to get too ahead of myself. You have Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops Plus. You have Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, one of the most iconic Metal Gear games ever. And then Acid 1 and 2, some of the most controversial Metal Gear games. I've not played Acid 1 and 2. I know they're kind of like tactical games, which made me very interested in them. But you have a lot, as you can see here, of Metal Gear games. I know our lovely editor, Josh, is seizing out in his chair right now. Oh, it's Metal Gear. He is the biggest Metal Gear fan I know.
That is an understatement, Maddie.
So I will just say this, these are great games from what I've heard. I will only throw out there that the only reason you may want to hold off is you have Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 1. And Konami is heavily suggesting they're at least bringing MGS4 over and that there will be a Volume 2. And so with that, I imagine there'll be Volumes 3, 4. Like, we don't know how they're going to package these together, but here you're looking at the PSP collection for Metal Gear. And I could totally see them doing a portable collection for one of the volumes. So it may be worth the pickup if you don't care about that sort of thing. But if you're like me and care a lot about, you know, consolidation of the amount of shelf space, like I can get rid of these 4 games and get 1 disc or 1 cartridge and call it a day. It's a pretty good trade-off for me. Then just keep that in mind when shopping. So ladies and gentlemen, that's all the recommendations I have for you, both in the positive and negative direction. Let me know if you're picking up a PSP this year and what games you may be buying that I've suggested. Also, if there's games that I missed here, I'm trying to build out my library. I've been reading the comment section for all these buying guides and been using your suggestions to fill out my collection further when I get a spare buck here or there. And so I would appreciate it if you threw your suggestions down below. What games should we be picking up or avoiding? Let me know. Other than that, I'll catch all of you in the next Retro Rebound. Peace out.